Great. Well, thank you very much. This session will be packed with so many ideas that we actually have two titles: Digital Transformation, How Industries Will Change, and Strategy, Not Technology, Drives Digital Transformation. Our primary focus will be on the former, but the two are connected, and we'll cover both. Let me start with a few prefatory comments. One of the things that brings us all together at DLD is our fascination with the digital revolution. And perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the digital revolution is that it's driven by exponential change. Chips get ever faster, bandwidth and storage get ever cheaper, data and media production accelerate rapidly, and the world gets ever more connected. The cumulative impact of those exponential changes on the business world have been extraordinary. Industries rise, fall, and are transformed with unprecedented rapidity. A small startup in Silicon Valley in 5 years took over more than 50% of the global messaging market, and it took on the SMS titans with 55 employees, and it was subsequently bought for $19 billion. Many industries are in terminal decline, from offline media and wireline communications to travel agencies, security brokers, many kinds of brokers. I think these dual features of rapid ascent and rapid decline are going to be constants during the digital revolution. There's one other feature of the digital revolution that I'd like to mention that I think might be relevant for this discussion, which is that it enables certain new business models that sometimes make it difficult for incumbents to respond. It's interesting that the world's largest taxi company, Uber, owns no cars, that the world's largest accommodation provider, Airbnb, owns no real estate or hotel rooms, and that the world's largest telephone companies, Skype and WeChat, own no physical communication infrastructure. These are unusual and new animals on the scene. They're often very difficult to compete with. So against that backdrop, being a CEO during the digital revolution, I think, has never been more challenging or offered more potential opportunity. And we're very fortunate to have with us today CEOs of two of the top companies in Europe, Olaf from the Metro Group, and Theodor from TED from Hypovereinsbank. And our hope with them is to have them help us peer into the future to understand how the digital transformation will affect their industry and others, and how they're responding to it. So let me start with an industry-level question. So putting aside the specifics of your industry, how do you see, what are the primary changes the digital revolution will bring to your industry, and of those, which excite you the most and which worry you the most? Olaf, maybe we start with you.
All right. Okay. Maybe I start with a general comment on our transformation as Metro Group, because I think the digital impact only has accelerated something which was happening before. Our company is a bit more than 50 years old, and we have been fairly successful in the majority of the years of those 50 years. However, there was a point in time where probably our confidence turned into pride, and sometimes pride is not that good once it turns a bit arrogant, and sometimes it can be a bit ignorant. And you started to see our like-for-like sales were slowing down. So there was an obvious, evident fact that we were not serving the customer well. But our willingness to accept that something had to change in the formula was really not there. And the digital, you could say, in a certain way, has accelerated that. It's like putting oil to the fire. Because the wisdom of your customer about where you're good at, as much as you're not good at, is so much more spread around. So people know exponentially more about yourself and about the product you're selling and the service you provide. So therefore, some 4 or 5 years ago, we had to really make a complete turn in the strategic direction. So in other words, digital actually accelerates the necessity to be customer-centric, but I can speak more in detail if you want, but I don't want to consume too much time.
Okay. Ted, how is your industry changing?
Yeah, from my side, you guys should know that banking is quite a fascinating industry still, and we have gone through a massive turbulent situation over the last 8 years. I grew up at McKinsey. I worked for Goldman Sachs as a partner, and we were being perceived as the masters of the universe, right? We were what I tend to call a go-go industry, a growth industry until 2007, 2008. What happened then during the financial market crisis? We became overnight. We came from a go-go industry. We went into what I call a yo-yo industry, an industry in turbulence. And meanwhile, given the digitalization, 8 years after the financial market crisis, we are a dodo industry, an industry in decline. And this is something which is extremely fascinating. On the one hand side, it's challenging, but on the other side, it provides enormous opportunities for those who are prepared to bandwagon quite early on. So what I've done, and I'm CEO since January 1st, 2009, I started probably a little bit earlier than others to jump on the digitalization, right? And for example, we closed overnight 50% of all of our branches. Because for me, it's pretty clear, we have lost the payment system war, the fight. We have lost it to the digitalization world, to the fintechs, to people like you, right? The good thing is, though, and I hope you keep it for you as a secret, you are still attacking mostly those areas of banking which are the least profitable ones. Therefore, I'm still ahead of the curve.
So to follow up on that, tell us more about your strategy of how you're going to deal with digital change over the next 10 years.
For me, it's pretty clear. Me as a bank, I do not have the opportunity, despite the fact that I'm a good-looking man, obviously, I don't have the attraction skills to bring in people like you. Therefore, it's probably not feasible for me to attract young entrepreneurs to come into my bank. Therefore, what I do, what my strategy is, I do invest a lot in fintech companies. I do establish as quickly and as broad and comprehensively as possible. I do establish cooperations with fintechs, because at the end of the day, the guys in the fintech arena, they need us as clients.
Sure.
And therefore, if you can't beat them, embrace them and join them. That's basically the strategy on the front end side. Secondly, on the big data side, right, on the true digitalization, I need to fully digitalize my processes and my organization. Unfortunately, this is a very bloody situation. I am sitting in the executive management committee of UniCredit, which is our parent. We have 150,000 people, and I'm sure we can run this bank, given the digitalization opportunities with significantly less people. Currently, HVB, the bank you are sitting here, this is our headquarter, right? We have currently 18,000 people. I'm sure I can run this bank with half of the people which are currently here, because of the fact that digitalization will finally and ultimately lay off people as well. But there's no way. We have to enter the bandwagon. We have to jump on. We have to become a driving force. It's better to be proactive than to stay in a reactive position.
And let me push on that maybe just a little bit further. The financial services world has seen the rise of some new business models, from digital mobile-first banks to marketplace lenders to wealth management robo-advisors. How do you think about potentially incorporating some of those elements into your bank, or do you think you'll stick with your current approach and unlikely do that?
So this question is very easy. There's no way that we can stick with the old business model. Either we incorporate the robo-banking, either we incorporate the new platforms, either we incorporate the new approaches how to deal with, right, our customers, or we are gone. That's very clear. You guys, my daughters, even my father and my mother, right, 77 and 85 years, they are applying now online banking, right? On average, ladies and gentlemen, my dear fellow guys, we have 5. We are able to organize 5 advisory meetings per week in our branches. 5 per week per advisor. This means if such an advisory meeting takes place 45 minutes, what are people doing 8 days per day if they can manage to get only 1 customer into the branch? For me, the branch scenario is pretty much dead, right? We will certainly keep high-end and flagship branches, but we need to understand that we need much more. We need to follow the needs of the clients, right? And we need to establish and to begin to think in R&D categories. Can you imagine that I'm making 1 billion profit per year? 1 billion euros is still more than 1 billion US dollar. And I don't have a single R&D person? banking is still benefiting a lot, right? But we don't have any R&D. The last R&D what we have done is the cash dispenser. How can you survive? Guys, we need to change fundamentally.
So Olaf, tell us how you're responding to these waves of digital change.
Well, as I mentioned, this whole transformation came up with a recognition that the old model didn't work anymore. And at the time, what have we done well? We have done well everything about sourcing product, running supply chains, optimizing stores. And to some degree, it was an industrialization. We optimized processes. But somewhere on that way, we forgot to really ask the question, how am I creating sustainable value for the audiences I'm serving? And actually, when we had the question 4.5 years ago, who are we serving? In many of our entities, it was not really clear. So by having a very clear understanding, and I'll pick Metro as one example of the divisions we have. Metro is a business where we serve independent business people. And market by market, that is very different. We can serve the independent grocer in Poland, and we can serve the hospitality sector in Southern Europe, Spain, France, Italy. So if you take that view on the hospitality sector, what is it that makes you contribute to their success? So we changed the formula and saying, the DNA of our new strategy must be, we are champion for independent business. It's you, the guy who runs a restaurant, who we want to make succeed a bit more. And I can do that by giving you access to some exclusive product. I can do that with unmatchable prices. I can do that by giving you more service. At the time, we found out more and more people want to get delivery. And guess what the answer was inside? We cannot deliver because that's cannibalizing the store turnover. And ever since we say, whoever raises the word cannibalization already is on red territory. Because cannibalization is just ignoring the fact your customer wants something else. So today we do 3 billion turnover in delivery, only in that short period of time. Now, while we were going through this journey, we raised the question, is digital actually going to make a contribution to those people in the food service sector? And we started to work on that 3 years ago. We were starting to scout and found people like you who fund new companies. We found many great ideas. How you can optimize your customer communication if you run a restaurant, how you can optimize the ordering process, how you can optimize the service and the business, how you can optimize the stock management. Just to give you as an anecdote, the biggest cost item in the P&L of a restaurant owner is not the lease. It's most often the shrinkage, the waste he has in the business. So to cut a long story short, we found a couple of great ideas, actually many dozen of ideas. But then we found out nobody's using that. Penetration of digital in the food service sector in Europe is literally zero. There are a few that do a bit of online ordering, table reservation, but literally is nothing. And why is that? In a sector that could be optimized with a huge amount of money. Well, the answer is fairly simple. The sector does not have the affinity to technology, sometimes because of lack of education, sometimes because of lack of attention, because people are so proud about their hard work and that they spend 7 days a week serving their customers, but not taking that one day off to think about how can I do it better. And that's where we then started to say, well, digital is the next level of creating value for our customers. How can we identify those 5 or 10 great solutions that make you more efficient in your business, give you more access to a loyal customer base, and so forth? And to conclude on that, we learned on that journey that we not necessarily can claim that we are the best guys to build business or to become a venture capitalist. We are not anywhere close of claiming that. So we teamed up with a company based in Boulder, Colorado called Techstars. And Techstars is in business now since 2006. And the sole purpose they have is if you are a startup entrepreneur, they want to make you succeed. That's their sole purpose. I said, that's a perfect match. We want to make independent business people succeed. You want to make startups succeed. So why don't we team up and do one accelerator for food services? And that's what we started in October. And actually, the first batch is going to finish next week. So we're going to have demo day on the 28th of January.
That's impressive. Does being a CEO during the time of such rapid change call for a different kind of leadership? And if so, how do you affect rapid change in your organization? How do you create the right incentives for people to do things that might be in tension with your core business?
Well, it is not only linked to the digital, it is linked to this massive change we had to bring up in the company, which was very much from an upstream supply chain operation to a downstream value chain value generator. And that had massive implications on the way we deal internally with leadership Before it was a bit of command and control culture. Today it is a interdependence culture. Nobody's independent, nobody's dependent, we're interdependent. And we created a number of measures to support that sort of behavior change, the leadership culture. And actually right now it's 50% of your yearly incentive evaluation is leadership behavior. And part of that, of course, is as well, show your openness, your willingness to learn about the next level of value creation in the audience we're serving. And don't try to pretend ever that you know. Because it's a fact, we all don't know. We know every day a bit more, but eventually all things will change.
Okay. So Ted, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the leadership question. Does being a CEO at such a time of rapid change call for a different kind of leadership?
For me, I have taken on, when I became CEO in 2009, I've taken on the leadership topic quite early on as one of the key topics, because I felt, and I do feel right now, that with the old leadership style, command and control, as you mentioned, Olaf, or with the style where you think that the management board is truly driving a huge tanker, right, with 150,000 people. If you think like this, then you're an old-fashioned guy. For me, I differentiate between leaders and managers. Leaders make others to follow you. Managers do organize stuff, right, with a very precise task. But what you really need is a kind of a bottom-up approach that people, young people, Generation Y, females, whatever, right, that you can get different perspectives on the same subject. And then you need to organize a process that people are willing to talk and dispute about this. And finally, one has to take the decision, right, and the decision process is going to change also fundamentally, right? And therefore, you are more a kind of a facilitator. You need to create opportunities for your people rather than you think that you know where to go. The borders, right, the frontiers are fluid. And therefore, you need to set a stage to say there's a roadmap. I know where I want to go. It's right. It's certainly this kind of direction. But you should not over-determine, right, your strategic and your business plans. What you need is an enormous level of degrees of freedom. You need to be prepared to accept failure, right? And in our industry, failure has been perceived as a big issue. And to change this behavior is open up huge creativity potential of the organization. And I always tell my young people, and I've created a so-called Country Chairman's Leadership Club in 2009, where I put in the top 40 people. I worked with them 2 years, every quarter, 1 or 2 full days, right, in order to educate them. And now we are in round number 4. So meanwhile, I've got more than 200 people who know how I'm thinking, who know our management board is thinking, and what we need. And at the end of the day, right, it's the tone of the top which drives an organization. But I can tell you, my almost fatalistic understanding right now is you will never get the lowest 30%, because the lowest 30% in terms of quality, they are concerned about everything. They do not drive an organization. You need to differentiate your approach to the top 30%, to the top 10%, right? They drive your organization. The second third, right, of your population, of your employee population, they are willing to follow you. And the lowest third, unfortunately, you need to avoid that they are throwing too much sand into the motor, right? That's basically what I've learned.
One of the hardest things to do in a period of such rapid change is stay on top of what's going on. It's difficult for CEOs, it's difficult for investors, it's difficult for entrepreneurs. How do you stay on top of the digital changes that are relevant for your industry? And I guess in particular, Olaf mentioned a little bit about how he interfaced with the startup community. He's got a program with Techstars outside of DLD. Are there other means of interfacing with entrepreneurs, with thought leaders, with venture capitalists and others?
As a CEO, my biggest challenge is quite simple. When people realize that Ted Weimer loves digitalization and is keen to get the bank digitalized, everybody is throwing on this and now saying that's a great idea here and a great idea there. And I've got 1,000 ideas flowing around in my bank. And to establish a process where you can identify the right ones out of the 1,000. And actually there I'm working together with Burda and with Paul Bernhard and others, right? I think despite the fact that you can get excited easily, you need a very professional process, right? And the biggest challenge for me as a CEO, if you're overwhelmed, right, you can get killed easily if you create a failure for the first 5 ventures you are doing, then you get killed.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is of paramount importance that you create success for the first ventures, and then it will hopefully be a self-feeding process.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest challenge.
My job is the same way. So
But you're
Olaf,
getting paid better.
you have been unusually aggressive and forward-thinking in how you interface with startups. I was amazed. You found me 2 years ago and wanted to set up a meeting to talk about new retail technologies in New York. You set up this program with Techstars. Tell us about what else you're doing and the results that these initiatives have brought in.
Yeah, first of all, I think the great thing is that by conversations with you and the many other peers we found, there's such a huge amount of good stuff that could be rolled out. And as I said, it's a 400 billion sector in Western and Southern Europe, where digital tools have actually not really made any step forward. Now with our sales force, and we have a couple of thousand people on the street every day, we can also start to introduce digital tools. But that's going to be one of the biggest challenges. How do we build a sales competence that actually can start to sell this incremental value to this loyal customer base which we have? We have basically 3/4 of the 2 million independent business people in our database. So that's a huge asset. But to make that right and to create success, as you say, Theo, I think that is something which is extremely important. We are doing many things more, too much for the amount of time we have in here, especially at Media Saturn. Media Saturn is, of course, even closer to the technology. For those of you who don't know Media Saturn, I hope not that many don't know it, but for those who don't know, it's like the Best Buy of Europe, so consumer electronics. And we used to just sell product. And we were so strong in marketing that we thought we are the kings. Everybody needs to buy with us. Well, guess what the truth is? The customer knows everything about the product. He knew everything about the price. So we had to go radical on EDLP. A huge, painful lesson we had to learn at the time we were still skimming the market. The additional thing that came up is service, which was not really high on our priority list. Why is service so important? Well, it is great to see that we're going to have 50 billion of smart devices. It's great to hear in CES Las Vegas that it's going to be so easy, ubiquitous, seamless, plug and play. The honest truth is bullshit. It is not compatible, it is complex. To install it and to make it work takes quite some effort. Every one of you who has started to do that at home will probably agree. And us coming to your home and making it easy, joyful, accessible is something we learned now in the recent month and quarters. Is a huge opportunity to build not only a business, which is fairly profitable, but also there to build community. So in other words, what we want to be is your lifetime partner for consumer electronics, providing you not only access to product and innovation at the fair price, but also the service experience, and then invite you to become part of the family. And Media Saturn has done a huge number of efforts to modernize the business. We meanwhile have also an accelerator. This one is not with Techstars, but it's based here in Munich, and it has invested a lot of time in identifying the next level of service value creation at the home of our customer.
Okay, great. Let me ask one last quick question. If you all look out beyond your own industries, onto the business landscape generally, and take a long-term view, say 10 years out, which industries do you think will be most affected by the digital revolution?
Shall I kick off? For me, it's pretty clear. All industries where you have a commodity will be affected per se. Secondly, everything what has to do with e-commerce will be affected. Thirdly, everything where you can use big data will be affected massively. And last but not least, I think it's not clear who are going to be the winners or not, and the losers. At the end of the day, it's all about who is prepared to invest. And at the end of the day, those industries will win who have the power, the pockets, and the willingness to invest. Just to give you a number, in 2014, right, the FinTech startups, they have, and the venture capitalists and the investors have given every month 1 billion to the FinTech startups. 1 billion per month. By the way, in the United States, 10 billion. In Germany, 80 million. 80 million. So it's a factor of 100 times bigger. And what I predict is, they are setting now the advantage for future success. That's why I'm saying it's so important where you invest. And normally, right, we tend to think about who are the winning industries, who are the losing industries. And I'm personally convinced you can always thrive and become a winner in the industry if you're willing to invest. But you need to have the guts to invest, as you guys have done.
So Olaf, help us see into the future. Which industries do you think will be most affected?
Well, I think look at yourself, how you change your way of living, and how much it changed in the last 5 years or 10 years, and essentially all industries will change. I mean, the factor that data is going to penetrate all value creation is a given, and that goes into more and more private life experiences, and therefore I think there's not that one. Certainly ours is one of the first one that got impacted, and I would dare to say, just to close it, we have really moved from a transaction business where we were selling to you product over the counter into a community building business. And if you don't build community in our business, you're basically out over time.
Well, great. Well, Ted and Olaf, thanks very much for your perspectives.
Thank you.